If you've owned an RV for a while, there's a good chance you're carrying at least one of the items on today's list. The surprising part, most people have absolutely no idea they're breaking rules until a park ranger, campground manager, or police officer points it out. Some of these mistakes result in a small fine. Others can end your camping trip on the spot. And one of these items is owned by millions of Americans but can become illegal simply by crossing into another state. Welcome back to Roadside Randy, where I help everyday Americans make smarter decisions about RVs, travel trailers, trucks, and life on the road. Before we get into this, I want to be clear about something. This list isn't here to scare you out of the RV lifestyle. It's here to help you enjoy it without running into expensive surprises. Laws and regulations vary by state, county, national park, campground, and in some cases by the specific road or trail you're on. Nothing in this video is legal advice, and I'd always encourage you to check the specific rules for wherever you're traveling before you go. With that said, let's count them down. Number 10. Your portable generator. Generators are as common in the RV world as camp chairs and propane grills. Most full-time travelers and weekend campers keep one on board, and for good reason. When you're dry camping or the power goes out at a hookup site, a generator makes a real difference. Here's where people get into trouble. The generator itself isn't the problem. Using it in the wrong place or at the wrong time is. Most campgrounds have quiet hours, typically from 10 at night to 6 or 7 in the morning, during which generator use is prohibited. What surprises people is how strictly some campgrounds and land management agencies enforce it. A ranger who catches you running a generator at 11 at night can ask you to leave the site. Beyond quiet hours. Some national forests, wilderness areas, and dispersed camping zones restrict generator use altogether. Some counties have noise ordinances that apply to campgrounds within their jurisdiction as well. The useful takeaway is simple. Before you arrive anywhere, look up the specific generator rules for that location. Most campground websites list their quiet hours, and calling ahead takes about 2 minutes. Number 9. Glass bottles. This one surprises a lot of people, but if you travel to beaches, lakes, state parks, or recreation areas, it's one worth knowing. Many popular outdoor areas in the United States prohibit glass containers outright. The reasoning is straightforward. Glass that gets broken in sand, water, or high-traffic outdoor areas creates a hazard that's nearly impossible to fully clean up and that injures people and animals long after the original incident. Dozens of Florida beaches prohibit glass containers. Many California state parks and beaches do the same. Several Great Lakes recreation areas, popular reservoir campgrounds, and national recreation areas have glass bans in effect. Some campgrounds extend this to the entire site rather than just the beach or water's edge. This typically doesn't apply to your RV interior, but it can become an issue if a ranger or campground host walks past your site and sees open glass bottles on your picnic table or in your fire pit area in a location where they're restricted. The useful takeaway here is to bring canned beverages or transfer drinks to reusable containers when you're heading into a restricted area. It's a small adjustment that avoids a potentially embarrassing situation. Number 8. Firewood from home. Here's one that catches a lot of RV owners completely off guard, especially those who load up their truck bed or storage compartment with split logs from their backyard before heading out. Many states, national parks, and campgrounds have regulations about transporting firewood across county or state lines. The reason is invasive insects, specifically pests like the emerald ash borer, the Asian longhorned beetle, and others that travel inside firewood and have caused devastating damage to forests across the country. The USDA and many state agriculture departments have established firewood transport restrictions in response to this. Some states restrict transporting firewood more than a certain number of miles. Some national parks require that any firewood brought in must be certified heat-treated. And some campgrounds simply prohibit outside firewood altogether and sell approved local firewood on-site. Violations can result in fines, and in some cases, the firewood can be confiscated at state agriculture inspection stations, particularly in states like California, Arizona, and others with active agricultural checkpoints. The useful takeaway is to buy your firewood at or near your destination. Most campgrounds sell it, and many local gas stations and grocery stores near popular camping areas carry certified firewood. It's a small convenience to give up for a good reason. If you're finding this helpful so far, go ahead and tap that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the rest of this countdown. Number 7. Your drone. If you're an RV traveler who loves capturing scenic footage from above, this section is one you'll want to pay close attention to. Drones are prohibited in all units of the National Park System. That's not a county rule or a campground policy. That's a National Park Service policy that applies across the board, with very limited exceptions that require specific permits. Flying a drone in a national park can result in fines and, in some cases, equipment confiscation. Beyond national parks, the FAA requires that drones weighing more than 0.55 pounds be registered before they can be flown legally in the United States. Most consumer drones fall into this category. Flying an unregistered drone is a federal violation. Many state parks have their own drone restrictions, and wilderness areas designated by Congress generally prohibit motorized equipment, which has been interpreted to include drones in many jurisdictions. Some local ordinances restrict drone use in populated or congested areas. And flying near airports, military installations, or large crowds without prior authorization is something the FAA takes seriously. Privacy laws add another layer. Some states have specific statutes about capturing images of people or private property with a drone without consent. The reality is that many RV travelers pack a drone without ever looking into the specific rules for where they're going. They pull into a beautiful national park vista, fly the drone for 20 minutes, and have no idea they've just violated federal policy. The useful takeaway is to check the specific rules for every location before you fly. The FAA's Before You Fly app is a free resource that shows airspace restrictions for any location. And if you're in or near a national park, the safest assumption is that drone use is not permitted without a specific special use permit. Number 6. Propane tanks while in transit. This one is more specifically about where you're traveling rather than where you're camping. Your RV's propane system is built in and regulated, which is a different situation from portable propane cylinders. But both can create complications when you're passing through certain locations. Some tunnels in the United States and in other countries prohibit vehicles carrying propane or other hazardous materials. The Baltimore Harbor Tunnel and some other major tunnels have restrictions on propane vehicles, though regulations vary and have changed over time, so checking current rules before you travel is important. Some ferry systems also have restrictions on passengers or vehicles carrying pressurized gas cylinders. Internationally, the rules get more complicated. If you're traveling into Canada or Mexico with propane systems, the regulations around acceptable tank types, fill levels, and certification differ from U.S. standards, and crossing the border without understanding those differences can create delays or problems at inspection. The useful takeaway is that if your travel route includes tunnels, ferries, or border crossings, it's worth checking the specific rules for your vehicle type before you go. A quick call to a tunnel authority or ferry company usually answers the question clearly. Number 5. Open alcohol containers. I'm curious, have you ever been surprised by an RV rule while traveling? Let me know down in the comments. Now, open container laws are something a lot of RV owners misunderstand, especially those who are new to full-time or extended travel. Here's the core issue. When your RV is on a public road, it is considered a vehicle. That means the open container laws that apply to cars and trucks generally apply to your RV as well, including the living area. In most states, having an open container of alcohol anywhere in the vehicle, including the residential area of a motorhome or the living quarters of a travel trailer that's being towed, can result in a citation. The logic is that even if the driver isn't drinking, the presence of an open container in the vehicle creates legal exposure. Some states have specific provisions that carve out exceptions for living quarters that are separated from the driving area and inaccessible while the vehicle is in motion. But those exceptions vary considerably from state to state, and what applies in one state may not apply in another you're driving through the same afternoon. The position of most law enforcement is that if your RV is on the road and moving, treat the open container laws the same as you would in any other vehicle. Seal the bottles and wait until you're parked. The useful takeaway is to know the laws for every state you're passing through, because they're not uniform. If you're unsure, the safest approach is to keep all alcohol sealed while you're in transit. We're halfway through the list, and the next few items get more serious. If this video is helping you travel smarter, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you catch the top 4. Number 4. Pets off leash. For most RV travelers, dogs come along for every trip, and that's great. But pet regulations at campgrounds and national parks are stricter than a lot of owners realize, and the penalties for ignoring them can be significant. In national parks, the rules are clear and consistently enforced. Pets must be on a leash no longer than 6 feet at all times when outside your RV. They're not permitted on most hiking trails in national parks. They can't be left unattended outside, and they're restricted from most backcountry areas. These rules exist because domestic animals, even well-trained ones, can disturb wildlife, introduce diseases, and create dangerous situations with native predators. Most campgrounds, both private and public, require pets to be on a leash at all times when outside your RV. Some campgrounds have weight or breed restrictions, some charge pet fees, and some enforce these rules very actively, with rangers or campground hosts checking compliance throughout the day. Fines for unleashed pets in national parks and state parks can run from $50 to several $100 depending on the jurisdiction and the circumstances. In some cases, a pet that has chased wildlife or caused a significant incident has led to the owner being asked to leave the park. The useful takeaway is to know the specific pet rules before you arrive, keep your dog leashed in all public areas, and never leave pets unattended outside your RV in any campground or park setting. Number 3. Dumping gray water on the ground. This is one of the most common rule violations in the RV world, partly because many RV owners genuinely believe that dumping gray water on the ground is harmless or even beneficial. That belief can result in a significant fine on federal land. Gray water is the wastewater from your sinks and shower. Unlike black water, it doesn't contain sewage, but a lot of people assume gray water is just soapy water. In reality, it often contains grease, food particles, toothpaste, detergents, and bacteria that can be harmful to soil, plant life, and water sources. On federal land managed by the Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, or National Park Service, dumping gray water on the ground is generally prohibited and can result in fines. On state lands, the rules vary by state. In some states, limited dispersal of gray water in specific circumstances is permitted. In others, it's prohibited regardless of what the water contains. Many campground goers dump their gray tanks into fire rings, onto the ground behind their site, or down storm drains without thinking twice about it. And in many locations, they've done it before without consequence. But enforcement does happen, and the fines are real. The useful takeaway is to use designated dump stations for all your tanks. Most campgrounds have them, and many travel centers and rest areas along major RV routes have them as well. If you're dry camping in a remote location, carry enough tank capacity to hold your gray water until you reach a proper dump station. We've covered everything from generators to gray water, but the final 2 items are the ones that catch experienced RV owners completely off guard. If you travel across state lines, pay close attention to these last 2. Number 2. Your Starlink dish. Most RV owners assume Starlink works exactly the same everywhere they travel. In most of the United States, that's true, but there are situations where the rules become more complicated than many people realize. Starlink itself is a legal product in the United States. Hundreds of thousands of RV travelers use it to stay connected while camping in remote locations, and in most circumstances, using it on your RV is completely fine. But there are situations where the rules around Starlink get complicated in ways that most users haven't thought about. If you're traveling internationally, even just across the border into Canada or Mexico, your Starlink service plan matters significantly. Starlink's roaming service has expanded considerably, but using a Starlink terminal in certain countries without the appropriate service plan or regulatory approval for that country can put you in violation of local telecommunications regulations. Some countries require specific authorization for satellite communication devices that wasn't built into the original U.S. purchase. Near military installations, certain government facilities, and classified zones, the use of satellite communication devices can attract serious attention. The general rule in these areas is that you should be aware of your proximity to sensitive sites and understand that there may be signal restrictions or monitoring in those areas. Some campgrounds and private RV parks have terms of service that prohibit the use of external antenna or dish equipment, including satellite dishes, either for aesthetic reasons or due to HOA-style rules at the resort. Violating those terms can result in being asked to leave. There's also the question of positioning. Starlink dishes need a clear view of the sky, which occasionally leads RV users to mount them in ways or locations that create additional complications, such as on rooftops of rented spots or in areas where they obstruct access or visibility for other campers. The most significant legal consideration for most RV travelers will arise if they plan to travel internationally. Starlink's website has specific guidance on which countries support roaming and what the limitations are. Reading that guidance before you cross any border with your Starlink dish is genuinely important. For most RV owners traveling within the United States, Starlink is straightforward to use. But if you're planning to cross international borders, it's worth checking the current rules before you travel. This final item is legal for millions of Americans at home. But depending on where you travel, crossing a single state line can completely change the rules. It's one of the biggest mistakes RV owners make, and one of the most serious. Number 1. Firearms. If you only remember one item from today's countdown, make it this one. More RV owners get caught off guard by changing firearms laws than almost any other travel regulation, simply because the rules can change the moment you cross a state line. This is not a political discussion, it's a practical one. RV travelers who carry firearms for protection or recreation need to understand that the laws governing those firearms change constantly as you cross state lines, and the consequences of getting it wrong can be serious. And unlike some of the other items on this list, this is one where a simple mistake can quickly become a legal problem. The federal government's reciprocity situation with concealed carry permits is complex. While some states recognize most other states' permits, others have very restrictive rules about which permits they accept or whether they accept them at all. A concealed carry permit that's valid in your home state may not be valid in a neighboring state you drive through on your way to a campground. Magazine capacity restrictions are another area where laws vary dramatically. Some states limit magazines to 10 rounds or fewer. Others have no restrictions. Traveling through a state with a higher capacity magazine that's legal where you live can result in a violation in that state. When it comes to national parks, the situation changed in 2010 when federal law was amended to allow firearms in national parks in accordance with the laws of the state in which the park is located. That means firearms are generally permitted in national parks now, but you still need to comply with state law for the state where that park sits. And bringing a firearm into a park visitor center, ranger station, or other federal facility within the park is still prohibited under federal law. Storage is another consideration. Some states require that firearms be stored in a specific way when transported in a vehicle, such as unloaded and in a locked container. The living area of an RV is considered part of the vehicle when it's on a public road, so those state laws apply. If you're crossing into Canada with firearms, the rules are entirely different and significantly stricter than anything you'll deal with in the United States. Handguns are prohibited for most visitors. Long guns must be declared at the border. Failure to declare a firearm when crossing into Canada can result in confiscation and criminal charges. The useful takeaway is to research these specific firearms laws for every state you plan to travel through before you leave home. The United States Concealed Carry Association and similar organizations maintain updated state-by-state resources. When in doubt, store your firearm unloaded in a locked container and research first. Most of these items aren't illegal everywhere. The important lesson is that the rules change depending on where you travel. A 5-minute check before arriving at your destination can save you a fine, a ruined camping trip, or a very uncomfortable conversation with a ranger. The RV owners who enjoy this lifestyle the most are usually the ones who took the time to understand the rules rather than assuming everything worked the same everywhere they went. If this video helped you avoid even one expensive mistake, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are trying to travel smarter. I'm Roadside Randy, helping everyday Americans make smarter decisions about RVs, travel trailers, trucks, and life on the road. Until next time, travel safely, and I'll see you down the road.